Hi guys, I'm Kat and today we are talking about true crime. Also today I don't have a word in Romanian for you, so leave me your suggestions in the comment section down below and let me know which word you want me to translate from Romanian to English. So before we get started with today's case, I'm just going to give you my usual disclaimer, which I keep forgetting lately to give you, but anyway, it's always on your screens at the beginning of each video. All the information I'm giving you in today's video is already found in the public domain. The video is for educational purposes only, and I also don't mean any disrespect to anyone I talk about in the video, and I will also be sharing my own views and opinions around the case I'm talking about. Also, trigger warning guys, this case is a horrific case of child abuse resulting in a child's death, so if this is something that you would rather not watch, then by all means I'll see you in the next video. This case was requested by an admin of the Facebook group Justice for Anthony Avalos. I will leave a link in the description below if you are interested in joining the group. On June 20th, 2018, Anthony was found unresponsive at his family's house in Lancaster, California, outside Los Angeles, where he and his 6 younger siblings lived with mom, Heather Barron, 29 years old at the time, and her living boyfriend, 32-year-old Kareem Leiva. 10-year-old Anthony Avalos loved playing sports and being outdoors. He was known for his kindness and inclusive spirit, and he stood up for people who could not stand up for themselves. If there was someone getting bullied, he would tell the bully it wasn't very nice and to just leave the other kid alone. Anthony was the fastest runner in his 4th grade class at El Dorado Elementary School in Lancaster. He earned a place on the honor roll, and his teacher, Harmony Bell, noticed an uncommon emotional maturity for a boy his age. Anthony was just a great kid. Everyone fell in love with him instantly. But whilst Anthony was protecting others, who was protecting him? This is a truly horrific case of extreme child abuse resulting in a child's death, echoing the case of Gabriel Fernandez, which I already covered previously. Today, we are talking about the case of Anthony Avalos. So, let's jump into it. Anthony Nolan Avalos was born on May the 4th, 2008. He would have turned 14 years old this year. He was born in Lancaster, Los Angeles County, California, US, to his parents, Heather Barron and Victor Avalos. Heather and Victor were still teenagers when Anthony was born. Soon after his birth, Victor moved to Mexico, seeing his son grow up through occasional video chats, but never again in person. Heather was left to raise the family alone, with earnings from a part-time job at Subway and $793 in monthly welfare benefits. In family photos, Anthony usually has a wide smile. In others, he looks deeply at the camera. Anthony was only 4 years old when his mother took him to a health clinic after he said that someone close to the family sexually molested him. The visit resulted in the first of many calls to the child abuse hotline. Investigators concluded the abuse had happened, but they didn't set up any ongoing supervision or counseling after they were assured by Anthony's mother that she would find him help and keep him away from the alleged abuser. Anthony's alleged abuser was Heather's own father, Anthony's own grandfather. He would babysit the children when Heather needed help. Sadly, Heather never kept Anthony away from his abuser. After Anthony turned 6 years old, his aunt, Crystal Dygit, told her therapist that Anthony's mother was beating him and locking him in a room with no access to food or bathroom. Being a mandated reporter, the therapist had the duty of contacting the authorities, so the child hotline was called. A caseworker was sent to Anthony's school to interview him, and he confirmed that Heather was beating him. He had no access to food or access to a bathroom. What his aunt was saying was true all along. Further interviews revealed that his mother got him counseling for sexual assault, like she said that she would. However, Anthony was observed to be acting sexually inappropriately with another child. This to me would suggest that Anthony was still being sexually assaulted. According to experts, such behavior is not uncommon with victims of sexual abuse. DCFS workers, Child Protective Services, wrote that Anthony's mother didn't seek professional help for Anthony. His siblings also told the DCFS workers that Heather was beating him. Case workers believed there was neglect in the home, and the family was referred to the department's voluntary family maintenance program. Under this program, children can stay with their families where they work to resolve issues underlying the issues. The program is designed for low-risk cases as a means to reduce the number of children in foster care. There is often no judicial oversight or an attorney to represent the child's best interests. But internal reviews showed that caseworkers placed children, including Anthony, into the program even after the department's risk scoring tool evaluated them as being at high risk of abuse. Gabriel Fernandez had also been in the program despite a risk rating of very high. One of the caseworkers assigned to Anthony was Matthew Mansfield, a veteran DCFS supervisor who also played a role in Gabriel's placement in the voluntary program. He was later disciplined for the move following an internal inquiry. In Anthony's case, Matthew Mansfield and his colleague Mark Millman brought in counselors from the Children's Center of the Antelope Valley to provide services for the children and their mother. Heather Barron was then aged 24, with 4 children and another one on the way. Quote, "Based solely on the information provided by Ms. Barron, the assessor believes that her capacity to provide suitable care for her children is severely limited by her poor parenting skills, poor judgment and denial, and lack of awareness of her mental health issues," Counselor Luis Ramirez wrote in June 2014. However, Heather's specific mental health diagnosis is redacted in court records. Now, we need to keep in mind that the program that Anthony was in was a voluntary program, so Heather was never forced to take part in this program because it was voluntary, right? Wendy Wright, another counselor at the Children's Center who spent significant time with Anthony and his mother, called the child hotline that October to report that Heather grabbed one of Anthony's siblings violently and dragged him across the room, consistently talked about her children in derogatory terms, and displayed nothing but anger towards the children. She told the hotline operator that Mark Millman was slow to respond to her phone calls and didn't seem to take action when she finally managed to reach him. Shane Bulkley, another DCFS worker who was assigned to investigate Wendy's report, wrote in his notes that Heather cursed, yelled, and acknowledged hitting the children with a belt. Shane quoted Mark as saying, "Given the children and their age and their behavior, she's doing all she can." Then in November 2014, another therapist at the Children's Center, Crystal G, called the child abuse hotline to report that one of the children told her, "Mommy whoops our ass." Mark Millman followed up with her in a brief conversation. A software program the department used to score the children's risk of being abused again indicated the likelihood was high and recommended increased supervision. Shane Bulkley and his supervisor overruled the recommendation and closed the investigation, saying they didn't have evidence to substantiate the allegations. At the end of 2014, Mark and his supervisor Matthew took the Children's Center off the case and enlisted a new agency, Hathaway Sycamore's Child and Family Services, which had provided similar services to Gabriel Fernandez through its counselor, Barbara Dixon. Barbara Dixon would later testify about her role in the Gabriel Fernandez case before Gabriel's death. In 2017, she told the court in the criminal case against Gabriel's caseworkers that she witnessed extensive injuries but withheld the information from the child abuse hotline despite state law requiring her to report all suspected abuse. She was given immunity to testify. Of course she was. After she was assigned to Anthony's case, the focus of her counseling to reduce the abuse in the family was actually directed at Anthony and not at his mother. Her case notes show that she counseled Anthony to listen to his mother more attentively and to finish his homework. Like this would stop the abuse from happening? Her notes for about a 1-year period from February 2015 to January 2016, when Anthony was ages 6 and 7 years old, portrayed him as prone to whining, crying, and tantrums that she said made parenting him difficult. I mean, I'm not sure what you would expect from a 6 or 7-year-old, not to cry, not to whine. I don't know, they are kids. I mean, kids do cry, kids whine, kids do bad stuff, but I mean, it's your duty as a parent to educate your children without the need for abuse. So I don't know what this Barbara was trying to achieve here, but clearly she wasn't looking at the best interests of Anthony. Some of Barbara's notes were even cut and pasted from one session to the next, and they didn't mention the new allegations of abuse that arrived at the child hotline during the time she worked with the family. Heather's brother, David Barron, was the first person in the family to meet Kareem Leiva, a co-worker at the Santa Clarita shipping facility. In 2015, David introduced Kareem to his sister Heather, and the two began a relationship that would go on for years, and they would welcome Heather's 7th child. As the relationship progressed, Heather told caseworkers that she became the victim of DV. Within months of their introduction, the father of one of Heather's younger children told police that Kareem was abusing his son. A sheriff's deputy interviewed the boy, he was 2 years old at the time, who told him that Kareem had violently grabbed him by the ear, leaving it bruised and cut. The deputy wrote that he saw the wounds himself, but when Sheriff's Detective Chris Wyatt got the report, he made absolutely no attempt to find Kareem. He recommended no charges, and of course, guess what? He ended the investigation. DCFS workers didn't locate and interview Kareem either at any point over the 3 years they investigated the family, even though they suspected that he was at the home regularly on nights and weekends, according to their case notes. They didn't follow the department's rules requiring them to contact Kareem's other children or their mothers. If they had, or if they had pulled court records, they would have seen that 2 other women had restraining orders against him after they separately told judges that he beat them with their children present. DCFS opened the case in dependency court for the sibling, but not for Anthony and the other children in the home. Soon after, one of the assigned DCFS caseworkers, Anna Shortino, saw visible marks and bruises on the sibling's face and left arm. She told the child abuse hotline that she doubted the abuse claim, but wanted it recorded to cover our butts. Heather and the boy told her that the injuries occurred when he fell in the shower. Caseworkers deemed the story plausible and marked the father's allegation as unfounded. DCFS guidelines require the allegation to be sent to the police for a criminal investigation. The assignment went to Sheriff's Deputy Billy Cox, who had been disciplined in the past for failing to properly investigate an unrelated child abuse allegation. He also testified later on that he never contacted Heather or Kareem. Quote, "It was routine and common practice," he said, that if a referral was called in by a social worker, that we basically rubber stamped it, so to speak, and sent it through. By September 2015, Anthony was enrolled at Lincoln Elementary School in Lancaster. In talking with Anthony, Vice Principal Gia Groh had become increasingly concerned. He told her that his mother beat him and locked him in a room with no access to food, water, and the bathroom. He also described the captain's chair, a form of discipline that required Anthony to hold a squatted position for a long period of time with his arms outstretched. She called the child abuse hotline on September 18. Around the same time, Anthony's uncle, David Barron, heard the same alarming stories from the children during a visit. They told him about being locked in a room, and they said Kareem also ordered the captain's chair punishment. The children also said that Kareem whipped their faces and legs with a belt and dangled Anthony's younger half-brother upside down from a staircase. When Heather came to pick up her children, David and his wife physically blocked her from taking the children away and called 911. Sheriff's Deputy Michael Gelardo responded and called the child abuse hotline to report what had happened. They seemed pretty shaken up when I talked to them about it. Gelardo told the hotline worker on the recorded line, adding his recommendation that the children not go home with their mother. So that the children don't go home with their mother. That was the recommendation. The next day, David called the hotline himself. The children confided in him that they had been locked in a room so long that they urinated and defecated on themselves. When Kareem got angry, he threw dirty diapers at them, slammed them into walls, and dragged one of Anthony's half-brothers by the ear, leaving it scabbed and bruised. The children were so hungry that they hoarded food. When asked how long this had been happening, the children could be heard in the background responding, 1,000 weeks. David told the hotline worker that Anthony's mother is cutting herself and saying that she hates life. I have pictures of her slitting her wrists and saying that she wants to die. He also told the hotline worker that Kareem was a member of the MS-13 gang and that he was afraid of what Kareem would do next. Mara Salvatrucha, commonly known as MS-13, is an international criminal gang that originated in Los Angeles, California in the 70s and 80s. Originally, the gang was set up to protect Salvadoran immigrants from other gangs in the Los Angeles area. Over time, the gang grew into a more traditional criminal organization. MS-13 is defined by its cruelty and its rivalry with the 18th Street Gang. They are considered to be the most dangerous and ruthless gang in the world. Many MS-13 members were deported to El Salvador after the close of the Salvadoran Civil War in 1992, or after being arrested facilitating the spread of the gang to Central America. The gang is currently active in many parts of the continental United States, Canada, Mexico, and Central America. Most members are Central American, Salvadorans in particular. As an international gang, its history is closely tied to United States-El Salvador relations. In 2018, the gang's US membership of up to 10,000 accounted for less than 1% of the 1.4 million gang members in the US and a similar share of gang murders. The gang is often referenced by the United States Republican Party to advocate for stricter immigration policies. Central Americans are the primary targets of violence and threats of violence by MS-13. Many of the victims are minors. Minors also make up the majority of suspects arrested for killings attributed to MS-13. Many school districts receiving Central American migrants were reluctant to admit unaccompanied teenagers when they arrived from Central America, which left them at home and vulnerable to gang recruitment. Recruitment is often forced. In El Salvador, children are recruited while traveling to school, to church, or even to work. Youth who are arrested for whatever reason are usually impressed into some gang or another during incarceration. They are notorious for their violence and the subcultural moral code based on merciless retribution. Aspirants are beaten for 13 seconds as an initiation to join the gang, a ritual known as a beat-in. MS-13 is often public in its violence. Infanticide and femicide are common, with El Salvador hosting the third highest femicide rate in the world. In 2016, 1 in 5,000 Salvadoran women were killed. Legal impunity is a key factor. In femicide cases, only 5% result in convictions. Violent retributions target both enemy gangs as well as their families, friends, and neighbors. Entire families will be wiped out in a single attack, regardless of the ages. Buses full of passengers from the wrong parts of town will be burned in broad daylight with passengers still aboard. Police officers, government officials, and community organizations are also frequent targets. Attacks like these have led the Supreme Court of El Salvador to authorize the classification of gangs as terrorist organizations. This cruelty of the distinguished members of the Maras or Mareros resulted in some being recruited by the Sinaloa cartel battling against Los Zetas in an ongoing drug war in Mexico. Their wide-ranging activities have drawn the attention of the FBI and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, who have initiated wide-scale raids against known and suspected gang members, arresting hundreds across the United States. In an interview with Bill Reiter in late 2017, Nassau County, New York District Attorney Madeline Sinus, referring to crimes committed by MS-13 gang members, stated, quote, "The crimes that we are talking about are brutal. Their weapon of choice is a machete. We end up seeing people with injuries that I've never seen before. You know, limbs hacked off. And that's what the bodies look like that we are recovering. So they are brutal, they are ruthless, and we are gonna be relentless in our attacks against them." End of quote. The choice of machete is in contrast to other gangs which prefer to use guns. Officials state the gang has ambitions to become a national brand with an organization to match the mafia or Mexican cartels, and estimate its membership has grown by several thousand in the last decade, with a presence in 40 states. Many Mara Salvatrucha members cover themselves in tattoos, including the face. Common markings include MS, Salvatrucha, the devil horns, and the name of their clique. By 2007, the gang was moving away from face tattoos to make it easier to commit crimes without being noticed. Members of Mara Salvatrucha, like those of most modern American gangs, utilize a system of hand signs for purposes of identification and communication. One of the most commonly displayed is the devil's head, which forms an M when displayed upside down. This hand sign is similar to the symbol commonly displayed by heavy metal musicians and their fans. Founders of Mara Salvatrucha adopted the hand sign after attending concerts of heavy metal bands. MS-13 gangs in the US are loosely affiliated with one another, and their specific activities are primarily determined by local circumstances. In El Salvador, the gang is more centralized and cohesive. According to the 2009 National Gang Threat Assessment, the gang is estimated to have 30,000 to 50,000 members and associate members worldwide, 8,000 to 10,000 of whom reside in the US. Other estimates put it at around 30,000 members internationally, and this was the figure in 2009. In Central America, the gang is strongest in the Northern Triangle countries, El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. In early 2018, the district attorney for Nassau County, New York, stated that an investigation had uncovered a structured network of MS-13 operations in New Jersey, Maryland, Virginia, Texas, from within a Mississippi prison cell, and in countries around the globe including Mexico, Colombia, Korea, France, Australia, Peru, Egypt, Ecuador, and Cuba. In El Salvador, it's estimated that MS-13 and the 18th Street Gang employ some 60,000 people between them, making them the largest employers in the country. Now, I only decided to give you insights into the MS-13 gang because Kareem was a gang member, and I believe that this plays a huge role in Anthony's death. As you know by now, the gang members are known to be brutal and they kill anyone regardless of their age or gender. Even in prison, they still operate. So Kareem, even in prison, would most likely have someone inside. Going back to Anthony, after David told the hotline, the child abuse hotline, about Kareem and the MS-13 gang, 2 days later, DCFS caseworker Ikea Vernon met with Anthony at his aunt and uncle's home. He repeated the accounts of abuse. Quote, "Heather is my old mom. This is my new house. I'm part of the Barron family now," he told Ikea. "I'm never going to see Heather again. She locks us up in our rooms and makes us starving." End of quote. Ikea Vernon then called Barbara Dixon, the therapist, and 2 other Hathaway Sycamore's counselors who had been working in the home for 7 months. They were all supportive of Heather Barron's parenting during the discussion. Quote, "Each service provider reported that they have never heard anything from the children about abuse and neglect," Ikea Vernon wrote. Ikea had recently joined the department. Her notes indicate that she had been unwilling to draw a conclusion about based solely on what the children told her. When David and Maria Barron showed up at the DCFS office for answers about the investigation, IKEA turned them away and incorrectly told them they could get information only from Anthony's mother, Heather. The couple left the building unaware that they could have filed a formal petition to ask the court to intervene. Heather Barron still had parental rights to the children, and after she brought them home in the last week of September, IKEA met with Anthony at Lincoln Elementary. He said that his mother was starting to be nice and does a new thing where she does not lock the bedroom door anymore. A month later, Anthony and his siblings retracted their allegations of abuse. I'm quite sure that, by this point, Heather gave them some beatings to scare them off from talking, and she probably also said, see, nobody believes you, you are still back with me, so you better keep your mouth shut, allegedly, in my opinion. Chris Wyatt, the sheriff's detective reviewing the latest allegations, of course, that he closed his investigation after one failed attempt to reach Kareem Leiva. Remember that Chris was the same one that dismissed other allegations of abuse previously. He also never talked to Michael Gelardo, the deputy who called the child abuse hotline. In December 2015, IKEA marked the allegations from Gia Groh, who was the vice principal at Anthony's school, Michael Gelardo and David Barron, as inconclusive. So you have at least 3 people who allege abuse, and yet you close down the report as inconclusive. I mean, is it not your duty as the social worker to investigate and close the report with a result, but not inconclusive? I don't know. She also used the computer system to score the family's risk of abuse and neglect, and it once again rated it high and recommended a greater level of intervention. IKEA and her supervisor, however, decided against any further action. In later testimony before the grand jury that indicted Heather Barron and Kareem Leiva for murder, IKEA said that her decision relied on the children recanting their prior claims of abuse. She testified that she was unaware that victims of abuse often retract their accounts. Quote, at the conclusion of my investigation, the situation was stabilized because the children had recanted their stories. End of quote. Now, this one, I'm finding it very, very hard to believe that she wasn't aware that children can retract the allegations or the accusations against a parent for abuse. I mean, as a social worker, I'm sure that it is not only your job to know that, but also I'm sure that as part of your training, you will be informed of these kind of things happening, because it's widely known, and you don't have to be a social worker or you don't have to have training. It's widely known that children usually would retract allegations out of fear or out of being scared, or if they do say that there was happening in the home and then they are sent back to the same parents who use them, of course that they will be retracting the accusations because they are scared. They don't want this to be happening to them again after seeing that nobody did anything to protect them from it. Barbara Dixon and Hathaway Sycamores ended their work with the family the following month. Later, Mildred Blue, a teacher providing services to Heather Barron at a domestic violence center, reported to the child hotline in April 2016 that the children arrived with bruises and said that Kareem had forced them to fight each other at home. They also appeared hungry, and one of the children even ate out of the trash. The children denied the allegation when interviewed by DCFS caseworkers, who didn't try to reach Kareem at Heather's home and decided that there was no need for a follow-up. Billy Cox, the sheriff's investigator, also received a report of Mildred's hotline call. He as well decided, yet again, not to follow up. The department requires detectives to conduct independent investigations of child abuse and not rely solely on DCFS reports, even if DCFS says it's unfounded. Near the end of 2016, at least one more call to the child abuse hotline arrived regarding Anthony's family, but details in the department file are lacking. Caseworkers marked it unfounded. Around this time, Heather Barron cut ties with her brother, sister, sister-in-law, and the educators who had once reported. She moved Anthony to El Dorado Elementary School, where his history was unknown. There, he got to know his new 4th grade teacher, Harmony Bell, and on the last day of school, he wrote her a letter, quote, "Dear Mrs. Bell, thank you for teaching me everything you could. It was such a blessing to meet you. I just hope that when I'm going to 6th that you can come to New Vista so I can see you still. I hope that you can come to my high school, middle school, and college. That way we will see each other for school years without a problem, because how close we are and how we are best buddies, friends. I just want to stay with you forever, but I can't. I just hope you have a good rest of your life, because you already know that I'm going to have a good life. Love, Anthony Avalos, your friend." End of quote. Harmony Bell saw that Anthony was often nervous about something. He held his Bible tightly throughout the day, once crying when it fell to the floor. Anthony would never return to school after classes ended that year. The next month, the 10-year-old arrived at the hospital emergency room with fatal bleeding in his skull. June 2018. The alleged final series of events began on June 18, 2018, when Heather Barron said Anthony confided to her that he liked boys. She told the DCFS caseworker that Kareem overheard the conversation. The following night, Kareem allegedly dropped Anthony repeatedly on his head. Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputies responded to a 911 call from Heather Barron at about 12:15 p.m. on June 20th, 2018.
Okay, and who needs our help today? What happened?
My son was
Okay.
with the children. He woke up and he felt like he was responsive.
Okay, listen, does he have a fever?
No, he doesn't have a fever.
Is he breathing? Okay, listen to me. Listen.
The services responded and they found Anthony inside the family's apartment. Authorities said they were told that Anthony had suffered injuries from a fall. Paramedics took him to the hospital in grave condition. Maria Barron, Anthony's aunt and David's wife, learned of Anthony's condition and went to the hospital, where she found Heather in the hallway. When Heather hesitated to let her see her nephew, Maria crouched at her feet on her hands and knees on the linoleum floor to plead with her to allow her to see Anthony. Through tears, she told Heather that she was sorry for reporting these allegations. At that point, she would have said anything to win her way in and get to see Anthony. Eventually, Heather agreed. Maria found Anthony unconscious and breathing on a ventilator. His lifeless face was held by a large yellow neck brace. Sensors were taped around his skull, recording his diminished brain activity. He was 4 feet 6 inches tall and weighed 77 pounds, 34 kilograms. He died hours later on June 1st, 2018. County officials removed the other children from the home as the investigation continued.
Susie and Jeff, about 50 people took part in a vigil here earlier. They left behind balloons, candles, and stuffed animals for a little boy whose teacher said that he had nearly perfect grades. And what makes this case even more painful is the fact that detectives say his death was suspicious.
And he was such a wonderful child, full of life.
This evening, a memorial sat outside the Lancaster apartment complex where 10-year-old Anthony Avalos was found with injuries that led to his death. His aunt, Maria Barron, was at the hospital when he was taken off life support.
And I touched him one more time and I kissed him and I said my goodbyes.
Her sorrow is mixed with anger because the LA County Sheriff's Department is calling his death suspicious. It comes after the boy's mother told detectives and her family his injuries were caused by a fall yesterday.
How does a child fall and this happens?
Barron believes Anthony's mother and her boyfriend have been abusing her nephew. She says she reported the couple to the county and his last school 3 years ago, but nothing was done.
He told us that he would get locked up and he wasn't allowed to use the bathroom.
Anytime I needed help, Anthony was always there.
Anthony's fourth grade teacher and some of her co-workers were at the vigil. They say he was at the new school for 2 years and they can't say what happened before that.
He never confided or confessed anything of the nature, and if you brought it up to him, he always defended his mother.
Anthony had been living at the apartment with his mom, her boyfriend, and his 6 brothers and sisters. The kids, ranging in age from 11 months to 12 years old, have been taken from the home while the case is being investigated.
Anthony deserves justice, and the rest of my nieces and nephews do not deserve to go back to her. They don't.
We called Anthony's mother earlier, but she hung up on us after we identified ourselves. So far, no one has been arrested in this case, and another vigil is being planned here at 6 p.m. tomorrow evening outside this apartment complex.
Anthony's body showed signs of prolonged abuse. His skin was bruised and burned from head to toe. His once healthy frame had wasted to skin and bones. Andra Nigmadikians, one of the physicians at UCLA Metal Children's Hospital who tried to save Anthony, recalled looking down at the boy and saying, "Oh my God, how does this happen?" Anthony Avalos suffered at least 5 days of sustained torture that culminated in the 10-year-old boy's death. Anthony's mother and her boyfriend poured hot sauce on Anthony's face and mouth, whipped the boy with a looped cord and belt, held him upside down and dropped him on his head repeatedly. They withheld food and force-fed him, slammed him into furniture and the floor, denied access to the bathroom, and enlisted other children in the home to inflict pain. At one point, Anthony could not walk, was unconscious, lying on his bedroom floor for hours, was not provided medical attention, and could not eat on his own. The prosecution motion describes the wounds stretching from head to toe as bruises, abrasions, red dots, scabs, cuts, and a traumatic brain injury. In addition to the injury suffered by Anthony that resulted in his June 21, 2018 death, the prosecution motion said that Kareem previously struck one of his brothers so hard that the boy required a trip to the hospital and staples on his head. Anthony had injuries to the side and his hip area, both his left hip and his right hip, and his arms, and even injuries to his feet. He had bruises and abrasions all over his entire body, including abrasions and bruises around his face and his nose and his forehead. He had circular marks on his stomach and below his nipple, multiple abrasions on both knees and on his back, contusions and scabs on all 4 of his extremities. He appeared to be thin with rib exposure. He had abrasions to his face, both knees, multiple bruises to the abdomen and hips, arms, buttocks, back, sunken eyes, and small circular burns. The coroner's report indicated that there was blunt force trauma to his head and his brain, and also multiple blunt force trauma to his body. Heather and Kareem committed these heinous acts by beating Anthony with belts, beating him with a vacuum hose, a vacuum cord, with fists, wrestling moves, choke holds, feet, slapping him in the face, torturing him by making him kneel on rice with hot sauce, slamming his head against the floor, locking him in his room for days. They didn't provide him with food or water, made him hold books and weights, and made him fight his siblings. Deputy District Attorney Jonathan Hatami seeks to establish a long-standing pattern of alleged child abuse. Hatami is the same attorney that was fighting for justice for Gabriel Fernandez as well. October 2018. Over the next few months, the true horror of what happened to Anthony and his siblings finally came out. A grand jury heard evidence in Anthony's case in October 2018. His teacher, Harmony Bell, testified that Anthony had a mind-blowing positivity. He often drew pictures for her and her daughters. Anthony's uncle, David, said in an interview that Anthony loved playing football and fishing at Apollo Park and the Aqueduct in Quartz Hill. To help earn the fishing trips, Anthony excelled at school. He told his uncle that he didn't talk when he wasn't supposed to, didn't rough house, that he helped pick up things from the floor, and helped the teacher pass out papers. In the months since Anthony's death, his siblings have answered questions for detectives, prosecutors, and grand jurors, providing graphic details of what they went through. The grand jury also heard from Anthony Avalos' 8-year-old younger sister. According to Hatami, she too was abused by her mother Heather and her mother's boyfriend. "Do you still love your mom?" Hatami asked the girl. "Yes," she responded. She also said she misses Anthony. The girl said that one day hers and Anthony's 7-year-old brother was in trouble and Kareem made him kneel in the corner. Quote, "If you didn't do that and you cry 'cause it hurts, you would get rice there and go on your knees," the girl recalled. She too had been forced to kneel on rice and it hurt. Both Heather and Kareem made the children kneel on rice. After the girl or her brothers were done with the punishment of kneeling on rice, she would have to clean up all the mess. The rice already had blood on it from the injuries. Kareem would put his feet against the children's knees to push harder into the rice. They cried, but Kareem would not let up until the crying stopped. Anthony's sister told the grand jury he had lots of boo-boos on his knees because he was forced onto the rice a lot. Quote, "One time Kareem dragged him on the carpet and he got a rug burn." End of quote. Sometimes they would have to stand in the corner from when they would get home from school until 8 p.m. Sometimes we would go in the hallway, the little wall behind my room and my mom's room. We would have to go there on our knees and carry books and with 2 weights on top, tied all together, and we would have to hold it for 10 minutes. "What about if you couldn't hold them?" Hatami asked. "If they fall, we would have to start all over again and get another hour," she said. Anthony's sister testified that one time as punishment, Kareem had Anthony carry a brick inside the house. "Someone threw a brick in our car and so he took it out from the backyard and bring it to Anthony and had him carry it." Hatami asked if Anthony looked sad. "Yes, he was crying," the girl responded. "What did mommy do?" the prosecutor inquired. "She was just in the room yelling at him to stop crying," the girl said. "When my other brother, me and Anthony were in trouble, we would go on the rice and Kareem would spank us with a belt on our feet," the girl told the grand jury. "It hurt, so we were crying." She said her mother hit her, Anthony, and her other brothers with a belt on their bottoms once. The girl also described Kareem using wrestling moves on them. "So the boys would be in trouble, so Kareem would have me and my other brother beat up Anthony, or me and Anthony beat up my other brother. Kareem would have us pinch him or sock him." The girl said her mother was sometimes watching the whole thing and never asked anyone to stop. Kareem and her mother would make them do captain's chair, where one stands against the wall with the knees bent like sitting in a chair. If they moved or cried, they had to start all over again. She testified that if they didn't do the punishment right, they would have to do exercises from a workout list. Anthony's sister told the jury Kareem beat Anthony with a vacuum cord while her mother was watching. She said the siblings were forced sometimes to eat plain peanut butter sandwiches or peanut butter on a corn tortilla. Kareem would time us for 2 minutes or 5 to eat the tortilla or sandwich, and if we didn't get it on time because it's nasty, we would get sriracha or tapatio on it, she said. These sriracha and tapatio are actually chili sauces. Kareem put an alarm on the boy's bedroom door because one time her younger brother sneaked out in the middle of the night to look for food. They said that since we are in trouble, we can't have real food. They say that that's a privilege, the girl said. As to what happened to Anthony, his sister said, a lot of times he got hurt and one morning he woke up and he was acting a little weird. So my mom said that they were gonna go to the hospital. And Anthony said he wanted to sleep. So my mom let him sleep for a little, and when he woke up, my mom said he wasn't breathing. The night before, Kareem picked him up from his armpits and dropped him on the floor. He did that about 10 times. When Anthony wasn't waking up the next morning, the girl said that her mother threw cold water on him. She then said her mother carried Anthony downstairs and he looked frozen. Heather then called 911. If the boys had an accident because they were locked in their rooms and could not go to the bathroom, the boys would have to sleep on the floor. Kareem would hold their legs, make them lay down and put their faces in the pee, the girl said. When police or social workers came to the house, the girl said she lied to them because her mother told her not to talk about Kareem. Her mom got mad because Anthony would cry a lot when he was in trouble. She said Anthony and her other brother would get punished pretty much every day. The girl said Kareem would also slap her mom and that only she, Anthony and her other brother were disciplined all the time and not the other children. At the end of the prosecutor's questions, several grand jurors asked their questions as well. The girl was then excused and asked to keep everything that happened inside a secret. The grand jury is composed of 25 members of the community who are tasked to hear the evidence and arguments presented by the prosecutor and decide whether an indictment is warranted or not. The defendants are not present during the grand jury proceeding and there is no defense attorney either. The hearings are all secret and the transcripts are sealed until the grand jury comes to an end. Heather Barron and Kareem Leiva will be tried together but with two separate juries. A grand jury indicted them in October 2018 on charges that they murdered Anthony Avalos and the two other children in the household. The case will officially start on 26th of September 2022. Prosecutors had announced in court in 2019 that they would pursue the death penalty against Heather and Kareem. George Gascon, district attorney of Los Angeles County, issued a directive barring prosecutors from seeking the death penalty in new cases as part of a series of sweeping policy changes he enacted after taking office in 2018. The move fulfilled the campaign promise but sparked backlash from some current and former prosecutors, local law enforcement officials, and crime victims. A campaign to recall Gascon was launched soon after he was elected.
Glenn, this case garnered national attention due to the horrific way in which this young victim was tortured and murdered. Avalos' family said they were heartbroken by the DA's decision they believe denies them a full justice.
It's absolutely gut-wrenching. The family of Anthony Avalos was in tears yesterday. They were crying.
The loved ones of 10-year-old Anthony Avalos, who prosecutors allege was tortured to death by his mother and her boyfriend, both charged with murder, said they'll never receive full justice in his killing. The satisfaction of seeing them suffer while on death row if convicted. That's because LA County's district attorney, George Gascon, in a stunning move this week, decided not to seek the death penalty against defendants Heather Barron and her boyfriend, Kareem Leiva, a special circumstances case that could have involved capital punishment, something Gascon says he does not support.
Putting them on death row minimizes a lot of their comforts that they'll get. And maybe they'll feel a little torture that Anthony got to feel.
Prosecutors pushed for the death penalty due to the horrific nature of the case. Court documents detailed how the defendants allegedly whipped the child with a belt and a looped cord, held him by his feet and dropped him on his head repeatedly, denied him food, and slammed him into furniture and the floor. Deputies and paramedics found Avalos unresponsive in the couple's apartment back in 2018. The couple claimed Avalos had fallen, but officials discovered this was a suspicious death and eventually booked the two for murder.
If there was ever a poster child case for the death penalty to be implemented, it was on the death of Anthony Avalos.
The attorney representing the family of Avalos blasted Gascon's decision to take the death penalty off the table.
I had to look at the mother of Anthony Avalos and her boyfriend and see them smirking and smiling because they knew that George Gascon was on their team. He should be on the team of the people in this community.
The most severe punishment that Leiva and Barron can receive now, if convicted, is life in prison without the possibility of parole, something Avalos' aunt says isn't enough.
And I thought, well, now we're going to get the justice he deserves. And here comes George Gascon just changing everything with his new policies and
You know, we're left with this void in our heart.
Deputy DA Jonathan Hatami criticized Gascon for removing the death penalty, tweeting, "This is a major failure with the LADA's blanket policies. It leaves out entire communities. It doesn't even consider public safety."
A spokesperson for Gascon's office said in a statement that seeking death in these cases subjects victims to decades of appeals. It's also extremely expensive and has never been shown to be a deterrent to crime. Now, Supervisor Catherine Barger, she also said in a statement today that those responsible for Avalos' death should be punished to the fullest, and that Gascon's decision, quote, has not been supported by the prosecuting attorney on this case. Lou and Glenn, we'll send it back to you in the studio.
It's also extremely expensive, with California spending over $5 billion on the death penalty since 1978, a cost to taxpayers of nearly $400 million per execution. Anthony's mother, Heather, is also charged with first-degree murder for her alleged complicity with Kareem. In the immediate aftermath of his death, the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors promised a comprehensive public report by former juvenile court judge Michael Nash, director of the Office of Child Protection, of any systemic issues in Anthony's protection by DCFS, the Sheriff's Department, and other county agencies. The report included a series of recommendations, such as increasing staffing in the Antelope Valley and improving access to medical assessments to minimize risks to other children in the future. But it emphasized that Anthony had not been under county oversight for more than a year before his death, and no one had told the agency of ongoing danger during that time. Even in the period when the agency did receive warnings, Nash wrote, Anthony's mother provided caseworkers reasons for assurance, including the successful completion of a parenting class and DV program. Quote, numerous interviews with the children occurred wherein the children indicated no issues. Numerous persons, including social workers, relatives, service providers, school staff, and others, reflected no concerns, he wrote. Nash said he did not review recordings of hotline calls by the Children's Center counselors, the teacher at the Domestic Violence Center, or any other call. Instead, he said he had relied on DCFS provided summaries. He also said, we did not talk about Hathaway sycamores in our report because we did not see any information suggesting they did anything improper. To the contrary, their actions appeared to be above reproach. Nash acknowledged, though, that he had not read the Hathaway sycamores case records either. But a far more devastating portrait of DCFS came from State Auditor Elaine Howell. The audit praised the department for reducing caseloads for its workers, yet it found that the department's social workers failed to initiate and complete investigations of neglect accurately or quickly enough. In more than 1/3 of the cases reviewed, safety assessments were wrong because caseworkers didn't include important risk factors such as past DV or previous DCFS investigations. All information at their fingertips. It was Heather who first called 911 on June 20th to report that Anthony was hurt. She claimed he had been injured in a fall, but prosecutors say what her son endured was far worse. Years of abuse until the very end of his life. Authorities believe that over the last 5 or 6 days that he was alive, Anthony suffered a series of punishment, both quick and prolonged, including having hot sauce poured on his face and mouth, being made to kneel on rice for long periods of time, being whipped with a belt on his body, legs, buttocks, and the bottom of his feet, and being repeatedly held upside down and dropped on his head. Anthony's mother only reported the injuries, bruises, cuts, and the brain injury among them once Anthony could no longer take any more pain. His uncle David wonders if his death was not some kind of mercy, quote, because he was on summer vacation. Who knows how much he would have had to suffer if he were still here. Maybe passing was better for Anthony, he explains, because he didn't have to suffer anymore. Heather and Kareem, arrested in June 2018, have both been charged with 1 count of murder and 1 count of torture in Anthony's death and 1 count of child abuse in the alleged beating of the boy's younger brother. Kareem Leiva faces an additional count of assault on a child causing death. The LA County District Attorney's Office announced that they faced an allegation that Anthony's killing was intentional and involved the infliction of torture. That means, if convicted, they could be put to death. Prosecutors are seeking to build their case on years of alleged violence and neglect in Anthony's home, both against him and his younger siblings. The case has drawn comparisons to that of Gabriel Fernandez, who also lived in LA County and who was tortured to death by his mother and her boyfriend in 2013. The account of Anthony's home life and death and how he was investigated is based on interviews with his family and officials with the county's Department of Children and Family Services, as well as a review of documents from prosecutors and the internal investigation launched after Anthony died. Anthony's mother and her boyfriend remain behind bars in lieu of $2 million bail each and have pleaded, of course, not guilty. They will return to court in November 2022. It remains unclear why the deadly abuse occurred. However, DCFS officials have suggested it could be because of Anthony's perceived sexuality. Sometime before he died, Anthony disclosed he liked boys, but is not known exactly who he told. However, Brandon Nichols, the DCFS deputy director, described it as Anthony coming out as gay. It could also have been that Anthony's 3 younger siblings were fathered by Kareem Leiva. They didn't appear to suffer any abuse. Anthony's sexuality disclosure drew national attention to the case and seemed to link it more closely with the death of Gabriel Fernandez, where prosecutors argued he was beaten because his mom's boyfriend believed that he was gay. Investigators asked Heather and Kareem about the sexuality claim, and even though it's not disclosed what they said, it was mentioned that there was nothing that would enable them to say definitively that this was a motivation for any kind of abuse. Any corroboration that Anthony was tortured for being gay would be sent to the district attorney, who could pursue a hate crime enhancement of the charges against both suspects. Anthony's uncle David says he doesn't know if his sister or her boyfriend knew that Anthony told others he liked boys, but according to the widespread abuse that authorities are alleging, the violence in their home seemed more prevalent. Quote, "It was going to happen no matter what. Maybe it was just to give themselves a reason. I don't know," he says, "but I don't think they needed a reason. I think whatever happened to Anthony was going to happen anyways." Brian Claypool, an attorney representing Anthony's father who lives in Mexico, and aunt and uncle, says the claims of possible homophobia are merely a smokescreen for what he calls professional misconduct by child welfare workers. DCFS, according to him, is trying to create an argument as to why the boyfriend would lose it and do something to Anthony. A sudden burst of emotion. Heather and the boyfriend found out about it, that Anthony liked boys, and that is the reason for it. But it won't work. They have a prior history of abuse. I think it's irresponsible for them to mention it." End of quote. He says the family is calling for an investigation into the social workers to determine if they should be held accountable for Anthony's death, although it was not immediately clear if authorities were doing so. Quote, "I have never seen more red flags of an impending death of a child," Brian Claypool told the LA Times. "That is deliberate indifference toward the life of a little boy." He said in July that DCFS investigated 88 claims of abuse at Anthony's home involving him and his siblings and found that 15 of them were substantiated. According to a review of DCFS contact with Anthony and his family completed by the Office of Child Protection after Anthony died, the agency had 13 contacts with them from February 2013 to November 2016. Among those who reported possible abuse or neglect were law enforcement, relatives, school employees, therapists, and others. A few of the reports were substantiated, but most were determined to be inconclusive or unfounded. The OCP report also found that numerous interviews with the children occurred wherein the children indicated no abuse. DCFS last had contact with Anthony's family in November 2016, according to the OCP report. After more than 3 years of suspected abuse or neglect within the family, including 2 substantiated incidents, all reports to the agency ceased that fall. Between 2015 and 2016, Anthony's mom completed programs on domestic violence and parenting. And then, in June 2018, Anthony Avalos was killed. Whatever happened to Anthony between 2016 and his death, the pain didn't stop. Some of the complaints of abuse at home are listed in an LA County District Attorney's Office court filing in the murder case. In one incident, it was reported that Anthony and 3 of his siblings were hit with a hose. On another occasion, the kids were hit with a belt on their legs and buttocks, locked in their room for hours, and had dirty diapers thrown at them. Kareem was also accused of lifting Anthony and slamming him on the floor, then kicking him in the stomach. In an incident in April 2016, Kareem allegedly made the children fight each other. It was also reported that the children were withheld food, were placed in timeouts for long periods of time, and were eating food out of the trash can because they were so hungry. Anthony's uncle David, over the years, called child welfare workers at least 5 times and had confronted his sister about the alleged abuse of Anthony and 3 of his oldest siblings. Anthony's father allegedly wasn't allowed to see him. He would always try to be there for him, buy him clothes and other stuff, but Heather would just throw them at him and tell him to stay away. He wanted to be there for Anthony, and he even asked Heather a couple of times if she was struggling financially. He told her, quote, "If you want, I can take Anthony, he can come live with me," end of quote. If she would just let him, Anthony might still be alive today. At times, according to David, Anthony's uncle, his sister seemed to acknowledge the violence in her home, which she blamed on her boyfriend Kareem. Heather would say, quote, "Kareem wasn't going to be there anymore. She was going to be a better mom, and that everything will change and be better." Eventually, however, she refused to let David and his wife see Anthony and some of his siblings. After David and his wife called Children's Services, Heather was afraid that if she lost her kids, she wouldn't be able to get her welfare money anymore, so she thought they were messing with her livelihood. Anthony told his uncle that if he said hi to them, he would get spanked beside his head. Heather told him that they were not his family, their kids aren't his cousins, and to simply just ignore them. David hadn't seen Anthony for 3 years before his death. Quote, "There are files that stated that Anthony said he was being deprived of food and being locked in rooms and abused," David says. "I don't know what else qualifies as proof. The kids tell them what's happening, and there's other reports from adults and teachers. They report, and they called me and my wife to make a statement and reported it. So there is multiple people. There's a lot of things the agency could have done that they didn't, that I feel is almost common sense with dealing with kids," David says. "But I don't know their policies and exactly what they are allowed to do and not do." David is planning to fight a decision by the Los Angeles County Department of Children and Family Services that denied him and his wife custody of 2 of Anthony's half-siblings. Quote, "They deprived this loving couple of 2 beautiful kids who are also abused of having a loving home. The sole reason why LA County DCFS did not allow this family to take in these 2 kids is because they posted a negative picture on social media that made DCFS look bad," and attorney Brian Claypool alleged. "That's how evil and wicked this Department of Children and Family Services is." Brian Claypool, who is planning to file 2 lawsuits, including a wrongful death complaint in connection with the June 2018 death of Anthony Avalos, said he also intends to file a petition seeking a court reversal of the DCFS decision and to grant custody to the children's aunt and uncle, Maria and David Barron. David said he and his wife had done everything required to prepare for the arrival of the boys' half-siblings, who are in temporary foster care. But DCFS refused to turn the children over to them because of a Facebook posting of Anthony in the hospital. Quote, "We were always their safe haven," Maria Barron said. "It's not just hurting us, it's hurting them and our own kids. Our kids are looking forward to being with their cousins reunited. It's been years and it just like broke me all over again just to know that we are not going to be able to be with them. It's not fair." End of quote. She said the couple made a decision to alert authorities about the alleged abuse and took that chance, hoping, putting their faith in DCFS that they were going to take those kids out of that situation and leave them with them, and it just backfired because they were not allowed to see them. "We will fight this to the very end," Claypool said of the DCFS decision. "Those two other children belong with Maria and David, and we are not giving up." The family's attorney has also called for a criminal investigation into social workers who investigated allegations of abuse in Anthony's household. As far as I'm aware, they were denied custody of the other children, but I wasn't able to find any more details if they fought further or if that was the final decision. But if there is anything that you know about the siblings, please do let me know in the comment section down below. In August 2019, the relatives of Anthony Avalos announced a $50 million lawsuit against Los Angeles County alleging social workers mishandled Anthony's case. The Los Angeles Superior Court suit was filed on behalf of the father, aunt, uncle, and 6 half-siblings of Anthony, who died on June 21, 2018. The lawsuit accuses the county and multiple social workers of failing to properly respond to reports of abuses of Anthony and his siblings. You will see that there were so many times where these kids disclosed to DCFS how bad he was. Attorney Brian Claypool told reporters at a news conference announcing the lawsuit. DCFS workers actually saw these kids getting abused and they still did nothing about it. DCFS issued a statement declining to comment on the specifics of the suit, but generally, of course, defending the agency's work. Quote, "At any given time, the Department of Children and Family Services serves more than 34,000 families and vulnerable children in Los Angeles County with an unwavering commitment to pursue child safety every day in our communities. Our 9,000 employees do not take this commitment lightly and look to do everything possible to safeguard the children in our care. All DCFS employees are held to the highest standards to ensure that the public trust in our service is honored and maintained." End of quote, according to DCFS. The lawsuit cites other high-profile deaths of children who are also being monitored by DCFS. 8-year-old Gabriel Fernandez and 4-year-old Noah Quattro, both of Palmdale, to allege systemic failures in the agency. Among the action needed to work on these systemic failures was the training of social workers in various areas, including on how to interview children, according to the lawsuit. DCFS employees have not been trained on how to effectively interview young children. Anthony's death was not unexpected, neither was the abuse faced by his half-siblings. DCFS records show that DCFS was complicit in the abuse and neglect of Anthony and his half-siblings and ultimately in Anthony's death. The records show that DCFS failed to properly investigate claims of physical and sexual abuse, including but not limited to their interviews, failure to review DCFS history, failure to coordinate with law enforcement, violating their own policies, failing to complete structured decision-making tool timely and truthfully, and failing to adjudicate despite the presence of exigency and imminent danger to Anthony and his half-siblings, according to the lawsuit. The suit requests damages in excess of $50 million. In May 2022, just a few months ago, a tentative $32 million settlement has been reached with Los Angeles County in the lawsuit over its Child Welfare Agency supervision of Anthony Avalos. The settlement in the 2018 death of 10-year-old Anthony Avalos requires approval by the 5-member county board of supervisors. The tentative settlement, which doesn't include the contractor, was reached shortly before the claim against the county was to go to trial. The basis of the lawsuit was that the county department was notified 13 times of abuse in Anthony's home in the high desert city of Lancaster. Anthony never got the help of DCFS that he deserved, Claypool, the family's attorney, told reporters. Anthony needed a lifeline, and DCFS failed. The tentative settlement was reached on May the 4th, which would have been Anthony's 14th birthday. We are very confident that the LA County Board of Supervisors will do the right thing, he said. The lawsuit is still pending against the mental health services contractor. The suit was brought on behalf of Victor Avalos, Anthony's father, and 3 of Anthony Avalos' surviving siblings. After nearly 3 years and only days before trial, we were able to settle this case with the County of Los Angeles for $32 million. We sincerely hope that the healing can begin and that the County of Los Angeles rehabilitates its child welfare system so that senseless tragedies like this will never happen again. Anthony Avalos should never have been killed, and his siblings should never have faced the abuse and neglect that they did. Nothing can ever bring Anthony back or take away the trauma that these children faced, but hopefully they can begin the process of healing now. As long as kids keep getting abused in the system, I'm going to keep fighting for them, the attorney said. The case will still proceed against the private agency Hathaway Sycamores, with the trial set for September the 6th, 2022. In my opinion, Hathaway Sycamores is equally responsible for the death of Anthony Avalos, said Jay Paul, the other family attorney. We have every intention of making sure that no other child suffers the way that Anthony did, because a private agency designed to help and protect children ignored the red flags. The settlement leaves Pasadena-based Hathaway Sycamores Child and Family Services as the only remaining defendant in the lawsuit. This suit alleges Hathaway Sycamores assigned employee Barbara Dixon to work with the family, even though she had allegedly not reported abuse in the case of 80-year-old Gabriel Fernandez of Palmdale, who, like Anthony, was killed in 2013 while in the care of his mother and her boyfriend. According to Claypool, Barbara was an unlicensed intern.
Hi, the boys' father, aunts, and uncles, along with their attorney, wrapped up a news conference a short while ago. They announced that conditional settlement of $32 million to be paid by LA County. Now, 10-year-old Anthony Avalos was tortured and killed back in 2018, allegedly by his mother and her boyfriend. Heather Barron and Kareem Leiva are awaiting a criminal trial. Now, Anthony's father, Victor Avalos, sued LA County about 3 years ago. His attorney announced today that the county has tentatively agreed to settle and pay $32 million to Anthony's father and 3 of Anthony's half-siblings who were also allegedly tortured. Attorney Brian Claypool said DCFS was notified 13 times of abuse within that home, but they dropped the ball. They didn't give Anthony the lifeline he needed. Anthony's aunt said family members had contact with him for the first 7 years of his life, but after that, his mother had custody of him and they were not allowed to see him.
DCFS took that away from me. If we would have done things differently, maybe he would still be here with us. You know, I put all my trust and faith into a system that at the time I didn't know was broken. If I would have known then what I know now, trust and belief, I would have never called. We would have tried to figure things out, just like we always did.
Nothing is gonna bring him back. And I don't think that's fair, you know?
A responsible Department of Child and Family Services would have removed this little boy in 2015. And guess what? He'd be alive today and he'd be smiling today, but for DCFS miserably failing this little boy.
Claypool said they have a separate pending lawsuit against Hathaway Sycamores, a mental health agency that was supposed to provide counseling for Anthony. He said the agency was not in contact with the DCFS. He claims neither communicated with the other about what was happening in the child's life. Now, Claypool says the LA County Board of Supervisors still needs to approve this conditional settlement, and that process could take anywhere from 30 to 90 days or even longer.
There was a celebration of life today for Anthony Avalos.
And CBS 2's Nicole Comstock live in Lancaster, where the family got news this weekend that the district attorney's office will not pursue the death penalty in this case. Such an awful story, Nicole.
Yeah, it is, Chris and Sarah. It was a very emotional day for Anthony's family. They tried their best to celebrate his life, but at the very same time, they're worried he won't get the justice he deserves. His family still celebrates his birthday, even though he passed away nearly 3 years ago. Anthony Avalos would have been 13 years old this week had he not been killed.
He just deserves to be here with all of us.
Anthony's loving aunt, Mara Cruz Avalos.
He didn't deserve what he went through.
They're here in front of the Lancaster apartment where Anthony was found unresponsive in June of 2018. His mother, Heather Barron, and her boyfriend, Kareem Leiva, were arrested and charged with capital murder. Prosecutors say they beat him with a cord and belt, poured hot sauce on his face, and dropped him on his head.
Not one time has the DA met with the family members on this case.
John Hatami is the deputy district attorney prosecuting the case. He's condemned LA County DA George Gascon's latest order to no longer seek the death penalty in this case.
And if the DA won't stand up for abused children, all of us need to stand up for abused children.
He says he's now calling out other elected officials as well, challenging them to stand up for Anthony and other child abuse victims by speaking out about the DA's new directives.
Gascon he doesn't consider our feelings at all.
Barron and Leiva now face life in prison. Anthony's family says they showed Anthony no mercy, and none should be given to them.
He didn't get a second chance of life. Why are they getting it?
Come Anthony's next birthday, his accused killers may have already stood trial.
It just hurts so bad. We just miss him so much, a lot.
Thank you all for coming and celebrating his life.
This is just another tragic case of horrendous which could have been stopped. In Anthony's case, people saw something and they said something. What's next? If people see something, should they do something instead of just saying? Because with Anthony, more than 12 times people said something, but Children's Services did nothing. And just imagine how happy Anthony was when him and his siblings stayed with their aunt and uncle, even saying that Heather is not their mother anymore. He felt safe and finally believed that abuse will stop, only to be returned back to his attackers. And just like Gabriel, even though Anthony knew that the torture inflicted on him and his siblings was wrong, he still defended his mom. He still loved his mom and he wanted to protect her. And the letter that Anthony wrote his teacher Harmony, how very polite and positive he was, even though he was already being violently attacked by his mother and her boyfriend. And he was looking forward to his future. He imagined he would do great things, as any child would imagine. Little did he know that sadly, shortly after writing the letter, his life would be taken away by monsters. And yet again, we see a mother who just stands by whilst allowing her children to be abused by her boyfriend. Not only standing by, but also participating and watching. Not only that, but she abused the children herself, even before Kareem came into the picture. What a sad, disgusting world we live in. Some parents have children because they only see dollar signs, nothing more. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Please let me know what do you think in the comment section down below. Take care, stay safe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.